Dear viewers, I welcome you all to our new session under facility planning, and we are going to discuss about project management and network analysis. And it will take a couple of sessions to complete, to get the complete ideas in our mind so that you can work on it in future. Today, we'll dive into the essential principles of effective project management and exploring key methodologies and tools to plan and execute and control the projects efficiently. We'll also examine network analysis techniques such as critical path method, that is CPM we call it, and program evaluation and review technique, that is PERT, which are very crucial for optimizing project schedules and resource allocation. By the end of these couple of sessions, you will have a solid understanding of how to manage projects effectively and leverage network analysis to ensure successful outcome of the project. So let's get started. Hospitality Education PPT welcome you all to the session. Now first is Introduction to Project Management and Network Analysis. Before we go into the detail of it, let us have a very clear sketch in our mind about the project. What is that? Let us take one example from our relevant field. What is that? The example of the project here I am taking, that is opening up a boutique hotel. I am not going in detail about the boutique hotel, but I am talking it in terms of a project. We are going to open up a boutique hotel, and how we can go for it. Let us just try to reveal that. Firstly, the project overview. What is the project is all about? Opening a boutique hotel involves transforming an existing property into a unique upscale lodging experience tailored to a niche market. The project requires meticulous planning, resource management, and coordination with various stakeholders to ensure the hotel's successful launch. That is the overview. One opening up of the project, like the boutique hotel here as example, it is not a one-man show. We need to connect various aspects starting from planning, budgeting, time frame, then creating the license, permissions obtained from the government sectors, and various other stages are there. Internal decor, then risk management, everything is there very much involved in this project, and we will try to list down those things and find out how it will be conducted. It is very to get a rough sketch about any project. What are the key phases of the project? Let us list down. Very first is initiation phase. Very next, the second one, the planning phase. Third is execution phase. Fourth is monitoring and control phase. And finally, the closure phase. Now let us try to reveal the each and every aspects of these 5 points we have mentioned. First one, the initiation phase. What does it involve? At this phase, we normally do a feasibility study, then the project charter. Under these, the time frame, risk management, budget allocations, which team will be working, all this detailing is done at this stage. Now, the second phase, the planning phase, what are the things involved in it? The design of layout, different permits and regulations you require, the budget planning, and resource allocation. That is coming under planning phase. Then the execution phase comes, renovation and constructions, furnishing and decor, then staff requirement and training. That is for the execution phase. Then monitoring and control phase. What is that? Under these, normally we try to track the progress. That is known as the progress tracking, quality control check, and also the risk management also checked and controlled at this point. Then finally, the last phase of the project is the closure phase. And in the closure phase, we normally look into the final inspection, marketing and promotion, and finally the grand opening or grand launch of the hotel. So this is overall the key phases of the project. Project is what? I just remind it once again, opening up a boutique hotel. So these are the tasks we want to complete before we go for actual launching of the hotel. So it's a project. You understood it. Now, then what is network analysis? What is network analysis? It means there are two things. One is critical path identification. What does it mean? Identify the sequence of tasks that determine the minimum project duration, such as obtaining permits, completing the renovations, and hiring of the staff. Now here if you look into this, that identifying the sequence of the task. We cannot start any task in the beginning. Every task should have some sequence. That means there will be one task to start with, like the obtaining of the permits. Once that will be done, then only the completing of the renovation. Accordingly, the renovation will be done. And then hiring of the staff. I cannot hire the staff in the very beginning and then going for the permits. So if I do the hiring of the staff in the very beginning of the project, what will happen? For all these months, sorry, when this project will be under renovations or obtaining permits, then these staff will be sitting idle because there is no place, there won't be any place or scope for them to work. Unnecessary, we have to pay them the salaries and required benefits. So every task should have a proper sequence and we have to find out the sequence through critical path identification. That is critical path, that is one major thing under network analysis. And another one is workflow optimization. What is that? Use the network diagram to visualize task dependencies and optimize workflow to avoid delays. Task dependency means one task is dependent on other. Suppose the first task, once it will be complete, then only the second task will be started. I cannot start the second task before the completion of the task 1. That means task 2 is dependent on task 1. Unless and until the task 1 is completed, I cannot start the task 2. So this workflow will tell us and guide us in terms of a diagram, and it will help us in terms of visualizing the task dependencies and optimizing the workflow to avoid delays. You got my point? And once these two things, this critical path identification and workflow optimization is under proper execution, then only applying these project management principles and network analysis, the boutique hotel project can be completed efficiently, on time, and within budget, of course, ensuring a successful and memorable opening. So that is overall is what is called project and then network analysis. Clear? That to do this, we need to have a solid theoretical inputs to understand how it is to be conducted. And that is why we are going to discuss about the project analysis and critical path analysis. Okay. So now we are coming back to the what exactly called a project. It is the set of tasks or activities interrelated to each other and are to be executed in their order for completion to accomplish the project. I repeat once again, try to understand each word. It is a set of tasks or activities which are interrelated to each other and are to be executed in right order for completion to accomplish the project. As I mentioned before that I cannot start task 2 before the completion of task 1. So task 1 has to be completed, then only the task 2 is possible to start. Then and there. I cannot start with the task 2 and then coming to the task 1. So there will be a proper sequence of each and every tasks. One will be completed. Even we can also start the task simultaneously. Two tasks can be started simultaneously. Okay, so like that it will go. It will be there will be a sequential connectivity between all these tasks. And once at the end it will be accomplishing the entire project. That is about the project. Let us take one example. Suppose the example is painting of wall. There is a wall, you have to paint it. Now to paint the wall, straightway we cannot start the painting of the wall. You need to do something more before we go for actual painting of the wall. What is that? Let us break down the entire task. First, prepare the surface. The wall has to be made ready. Once the surface is ready, then the second task to apply the primer on the surface, or we call it prime the surface. And then task C will come, painting of the wall finally. So to complete the paint of a particular wall, we need to do three things. One is preparing the surface, apply primer on the surface, and finally painting the wall. If that is the event or that is the project for all of us, then if you want to put it in network analysis and want to visualize it, this is like this. First, we are going to start with a task A. Start A will, task A will start and then be completed. Once that is completed, then uh, we can start task B, that is prime the surface. And once that will be completed, then we can go for painting of wall, that is task C. So here you can see in this network visualizations that task A will be completed, then only task B will be starting. Once the task B is completed, then only the C will start and it will be finished. And ultimately, this is the entire project, a painting of the wall. Now here if we see that I cannot start prime the surface before the A is completed. That means preparing of the surface. If the surface is not ready, I cannot apply primer on the wall. That is very obvious. And I cannot even start the painting of the wall before this B and A is completed. So first A will be completed, the preparing of the surface. Then B will be completed, that is prime the surface. And finally, we can start applying paint on the wall. Then the entire event will be complete. Or this is a project that will be completed. Clear? Let us take up another one example. What is the task? What is the project out here? Organizing a small event. You may have a small event at home. Let us try to break down. To organize that small event, what is to be done? First of all, you have to choose a theme, whether it is a birthday or marriage anniversary or any other get together. That theme you have to decide on. Create the guest list, who all will be invited. Then you have to talk to the caterer, book the caterer accordingly. Then after that, what you are going to do? Send the invitation to different guests. Then setting up the event. That is final day. Now here, if you see, we are having to organize a small event. We are having 5 tasks to be completed to complete this entire project. Here you can see I'm trying to put it first in a network form to visualize the task. First is A, choose a theme. Once the theme is chosen, then we can do 2 things at a time. One is B, to create a guest list, and at the same time we can do the C as well, book the caterer. Once the guest is finalized, you can always start with the, you can talk to the caterer and almost you can finalize the task. Then once these 2 things are completed, then only you can start the invitation to the guest. Without preparing the guest list, you cannot send the invitation. That is very obvious. So once this B will be completed, then only your invitation will start. That is D will start. And once your catering is booked, then only you can ultimately set the event, that is E, and it is the final culmination day. Okay, this is the network. Here you can see you cannot start D without finishing B. That means, sorry, that means you cannot send the invitation without finalizing the guest list. You cannot set up the event without booking the caterer. We cannot set the entire event without choosing a theme. At the end, you cannot choose a theme. So every event should have multiple tasks to be completed, and all those tasks should have a proper sequence. That is the example of the project and network. Is that clear? Fine. If you have any questions, please put me in the comment box. That is very, very important for your clear understanding about the subject or the topic. Now, relation of activities can be connected in sequence and simultaneously. Here you can see in this example, it is all sequentially connected. Task A will start and finish. Then the task B will start. And once the B is completed, then only task C will start. In this example, you can see that is, here also you can see that 2 tasks are getting started simultaneously. Once the A is completed, that means that theme is chosen. He can start preparing the guest list and also start talking to the caterer. By the time 2 will be completed, then this D and E will start doing. Okay, so all the activities should have a relationship. and they can be either connected sequentially or simultaneously. From this network visualization, it is clear. Okay, hope it is becoming clear in your mind now. Let us proceed to the next. Project management. What is that? Let us clarify few terms. Each activity is defined by its duration. That means every activity should have a time to complete the activity and its predecessors. That means the activities that must be completed before the activity can start. So every activity should have a predecessor and time will be completed, time will be mentioned to complete, so that we know that task 1 is taking say 2 days time to complete, then only another activity will start. So before 2 days I cannot start the second task or second activity. So activity should have a time to complete, and its predecessors that must be completed before the activity can be started. That means I cannot start any activity before the predecessor activity is completed. Clear? Okay. Now what is CPM critical path method? It is used to assist the project manager in scheduling the activities. That is, when should each activity will start, and it assumes that activity duration are known with certainty. That means if I know that to paint the wall or to apply the primer on the wall, it will take 2 days. So that is 2 days means 2 days. It cannot be 3 days or cannot be suddenly 1 day. Clear? So that time duration has to be known certainly. And that is possible once you are employing the experienced person over there. So that is known as the CPM, critical path method. And then PERT, program evaluation and review technique. It is used to assist in project scheduling similar to CPM. However, PERT assumes that activity durations are random variables. That means probabilistic. So CPM is based on the definite duration of the task, and PERT is based on probabilistic duration of the task. These are two different angles. Clear? What is a project network? A network is the graphical representation of logically and sequentially connected arrows and nodes representing activities and events of a project. It is a diagram depicting precedence relationship between different activities. I repeat once again, it is a network graphically representations of what? Logically and sequentially connected arrows and nodes. I'll clarify the word nodes also for you, representing activities and events of a project. It is a diagram depicting precedence. That means before this activity, which activity has to be completed. That precedence. That precedence relationship is very much between different activities. That is very, very important. Now, let us see this diagram. Now, see that this is one project, imaginary project network, where the activity A is starting. Once the activity A is completed, from there, two activities are starting, B and C, simultaneously. And here you can see the A, B and C are connected sequentially. B and C can start only when A is completed, not before that. Now one B is completed, then from there D can start another activity which is denoted with arrow. And once the C is completed, then the activity E can start, and D and E both can be completed at this point to complete the entire project. Okay, this is a network. Now few things to learn out of this project network. What is that? We have used the word node. Node is, this one is known as the node, which is in terms of circle with a number. It is the indication of node or event. Okay. This arrow is representing the activity. So all these arrows are given. It is universally correct. It is representing the activity of the project. Below the activity, the duration should be always mentioned. Like in this case, the activity A, where the duration is mentioned 2 days. That means to complete the activity A, you need to have 2 days only. More than that time cannot be given to you. 2 days allotted for that. Clear? And it is also like other activities represented in terms of arrow. The duration in this case is 3 days. In this case, to complete the activity D, you have only 4 days. To complete the activity C, you have 4 days. And similarly, to complete the activity E, you require 5 days only. So this duration will be mentioned like this. Now let us clarify the word activity once again. What is that? Any task or work which consumes resources. Resources means foreign, man, material, machine and money. We require man, we require material, we require machine and money. If that is required, that is known as the activity. And of course, not only resources and also the time. That means any task which requires resources and time, that will be termed as activity and always denoted with a capital letter. That is the activity A. This is the activity. To complete the activity A, we require resources. Resources can be of 4 types: man, material, machine and money. And of course the duration, that is the time. Then only it will be termed as activity. Clear? What is the event or node? The moment at which any activity starts or finishes, however, do not consume any time or resource, is termed as node. That means the start point of activity A is termed as the node, and finish point of the activity B also termed as the node. Now these two nodes are not consuming any duration of time, neither it is consuming any resources. That is known as the node, and it is always denoted with the circle and number. So what did we learn from here? Any activity which consumes resources and time will be termed as activity in terms of project network. Resources can be man, material, machine and money. It will be always denoted with the capital letter A, B, C, D like that. And it should have a proper duration also mentioned below the activity. Any activity, starting point and end point will be termed as a node, which will be denoted with a circle and number. And this node is not going to consume any resources or time. Clear? So there is a difference between activity, event or node. Here Suppose the task is painting and it is denoted with A, duration is 2 hours. Just for example, start node is always mentioned with I and finish node is always mentioned with J, and duration it is denoted with, it is a start node of event A and it is the finishing node or event of A. Clear? And duration is always written like Dij. D is the duration, I and J indicates to start from I and finishing at point J. So Dij is 2 hours in this case. Clear? Fine. In this case, duration is 2 days. Start node is 1 and end node is 2. So what we can write? D is the duration, 1 2, that means from 1 to 2 equal to 2 days. Clear? Network analysis. Now few points to be remembered out here. Network analysis is one of the important tools for project management that you understood already. Whether major or minor a project has to be completed in a definite time at a definite cost. That is, for any business, it is always hold good, as because it should be completed with a definite time and with a definite cost. It cannot continue for eternity. The necessary information of any particular data can be represented as a project network. Okay. These techniques are very useful for planning, scheduling, and executing large time-bound projects involving careful coordination of variety of complex and interrelated activities. What is that? Firstly, we should know what are the tasks involved. Through network analysis, we can put them sequentially. They should be connected like that. We should also know properly their duration to be consumed to complete that task, and the start node and the end node, which is denoted with I and J respectively. Okay. What is the objective? Rather, what are the objectives? It is helpful in planning, of course. It will give you a visualizations that to start with which task and to finish with which task, which will be the next task, what is the duration. So all these things will be able to known to the people who are doing the project management, helpful in planning. Interrelationship of various activities, that is very, very important, like preparing of the surface, then applying the primer, then applying the painting on that. So this is a relationship. I cannot start with the painting, then go for preparing the surface and finally applying primer on that. We need to know the sequence of the task. Cost control, because any activity should have four things: resources, one is man, machine, money, and material. Man, machine, money, and material. So naturally there should be a cost controlling effect that will be there. Minimization of the maintenance time. I cannot spend more time than it's required for completion of the project. So we can minimize the time frame. That is possible through network analysis. We will learn that also in later stage. Reduction of time, that also possible through this network analysis. We'll do that. Controlling of idle resources. If I see that in some area some resources are sitting idle, maybe the manpower is there but there is no work, machine is involved or machine is not working or not required there, so we can control that easily. We can pick up that machine from there, put it somewhere else where it is required. We can utilize the machine in that way. Same with the manpower, same with the material. So we can always control it properly through this method. Avoiding delays and interruptions. We can also avoid the delay and interruptions through this process. Applications where we can apply this. We can apply these in planning, scheduling, monitoring and controlling of large and complex projects. Construction of factories, highways, building, bridges, cinemas, etc., where you can apply these applications. It is very much helpful to army for its missile development. Very important for that. Assembly line scheduling, that is also possible. Installation of computers and high-tech machineries, where we can apply this process to make marketing strategies, etc. Now we'll go for classification of activities. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comment box so that I can give you the proper clarification for that. Now, predecessor activity. What is that? Activities that must be completed immediately prior to the start of another activity are called predecessor activity. Let us straightway go to the example. First example was painting of the wall. And under painting of the wall, first task was preparing of the surface. Second task was applying the primer on that. And then third task was finally to paint the wall. So first task was preparing of the surface. This preparing of the surface has got no previous activity required to be completed. So this task had no predecessor. But task B, where you need to apply the primer on the wall, once the surface is ready, so without completion of that task, I cannot start the applying of the primer on the wall. So in this case, the first task is known as the predecessor. That means preparing of the surface is the predecessor. So what we say out here, activities that must be completed immediately prior to the start of the activity, next activity, are called the predecessor activity. Clear? Successor activity. What is that? Very sure. Very simple also. Activities that cannot be started until one or more or other activities are completed but immediately succeed them are called successor activities. Let us see this example first. In this we can see that A is one activity to start with. B and C will start once the A is completed. This activity E will start only when the B is completed, and activity D will start only when the C is completed, and B and C will start only when the A is completed. So here, who is the predecessor, who is the successor? Activity A is the predecessor of B and C. So B and C will start only when A is completed. So A becomes the predecessor of B and C. So in that way, B and C becomes a dependent activity. Dependent on what? Dependent on A. Clear? Activity B is the predecessor of, correct. Activity B is the predecessor of activity E, because E will be dependent on B. So B becomes the predecessor of E. So in this case, E is the dependent activity. Activity C is the predecessor of activity D. D becomes the dependent activity. Activity A has no predecessor. Activity is the first task, so it has got no predecessor. It is an independent activity. Now, who is the successor? B and C is the successor of A. E is the successor of B. D is the successor of C. Clear? So, successor activities that cannot be started until one or more of other activities are completed, but immediately succeed them, are called successor. So in this case, B is the success. B and C is the successor of A. A is the predecessor of B and C. Clear this concept? Okay. No activities are dependent on their successors. No activities are dependent on their successors. Suppose the activity A. Activity A, B and C is very much dependent on A. Why? Because once A will be completed, then only B and C can start. In this case, E is dependent on B. Once the B is completed, then only E will start, not before that. But A are not dependent on B and C. Like, let us go back to the example once again. Painting of the wall. First task was to prepare the surface. Second task was to apply the primer on the surface. And third task was to paint the wall. So when I am doing the first task, that means preparing of the surface, my work is no way dependent on the application of primer of the wall. Rather, the person who will be doing the primer on the wall, he is dependent on me, as because I am preparing the surface. Unless and until the surface is ready, that person cannot start his work. Clear? So no activities are dependent on their successors. Is that clear? But B and C in this diagram, in this network, B and C is very much dependent on A. A is not dependent on B and C. C is not dependent on D. D is what? D is the predecessor of C. So now in this case, D is the successor of C. So C is not depending on the successor of D, successor, that is D. Whereas D is dependent on predecessor, that is C. Clear? Okay, fine. If you have any question on these, please again, I am telling you again and again, put me in the comment box with your question. Classification of activities. Now we'll talk about dummy activity. What is that? For that we take this table. Here we can see that list of activities are given and list of predecessors are also mentioned. Like activity A has got no predecessor. Activity B has got no predecessor. Whereas activity C has got two predecessors, that is A and B. Let us draw this network. The node 1 from where the activity A will start, activity A, and there is a node 2 where activity A is completed. Similarly, another one activity is starting from the node 1, starting activity, that is B. So A has got no predecessor, B has got no predecessor, that you can see. Now C is starting from A and B after the completion of A and B. So let us take this first. In the table it is mentioned that C will start after the completion of A and B. Now here you can see that C is starting after the completion of B. A is no way connected. So we need to connect that. That means A will be completed, B will be completed, then only C can start. In that case, some link is missing. To put that link back, we need to have one imaginary connections represented with the arrow with the dotted line, that is known as dummy activity. That means A will start, B will start, A will be completed, B will be completed, and then only C will start. So this is known as the dummy activity. We are putting some imaginary connectivity between these two tasks to connect them for the sake of the network. Now, this arrow can be either to this way or other way also. Let us see along the diagram. So here in this case, A is starting, B is starting. We are putting a dummy activity there. That means arrow is on that side, and then 4 is, that means this C is starting. This is the activity C which is starting. So we can see that A will be completed, B will be completed, and this is a dummy activity connected to the imaginary line. Then C is starting. Now this network is perfect. Okay, now we'll analyze, rather we'll clarify what is dummy activity. First, the concurrent activities. What is that? Activities that can be accomplished together are known as the concurrent activity. What is dummy activity? An activity which does not consume any resource and time but merely depicts the dependence of one activity on other is called dummy activity. If we will check this diagram here, let us take this. This is a network. In this network, we are saying A and B are concurrent activities. A and B are concurrent activities. That means they are starting from the same node at the same time. Okay? Concurrent activities. Activities that can be accomplished together are known as concurrent activities. Perfect. If is dependent activity on B, if is the dependent activity of B, that we can see from the network. And then C is dependent on both B and A. C is starting dependent on both B and A. Here you can see that clearly the A is completed, then C can start. Here in the clause it is mentioned C is dependent on both B and A. That means you need to connect B, this point 2 and point 3, rather node 2 and node 3 together with what? With one imaginary line, that is activity, dummy activity. Then this point 3 will be fulfilled. So activity A is completing here, activity is starting from here and completing there, and then only it becomes a dummy activity. So dummy activity do not consume any time, do not consume any resources. Clear? It is just to fulfill the criteria of the network. It is given like that. So what is the conclusion on these? Dummy activities required to satisfy the predecessor's relationship. Here it is mentioned that C is dependent on B and A. That means B and A is the predecessor of C. And how it is possible? If it is only possible one, this B and A is connected to a dummy activity. Clear? Can use any number of dummy activities in any project, in any network whenever it is needed. If you need to put a dummy activity to fulfill this dependency criteria, rather predecessor's activity relationship, you need to put the dummy activity and you can put a number of activities there. Because dummy activity do not consume any resources nor consuming any time. Okay? It is introduced in a network when two or more parallel activities have the same start and finish nodes. It is always indicated by a dotted arrow. Clear? Now let us discuss about type of events. When there is one node of this kind where two activities are getting finished, this is known as a merge event. This is merge event. In this case, where one node from there two activities are generating, this is known as burst event. It is bursting out. It is merging in. Okay. In this case, two activities are merging and two activities are bursting out from the same node. It is known as merge and burst event. Okay. Now, few guidelines for the network construction. One is a complete network diagram should have one start point and one finish point. Here you can see this network is starting from node 1 and finishing at node 6. So one start point and one finish point. That is the compulsory part of any network construction. Okay. So this is one start node and one end node or finish point. Let us see this diagram where three different nodes, three different activities are starting and marching to one node. This kind of network is not accepted. Why? Because a complete network diagram should have one start node and one finish point. So it cannot be only like this. It cannot start like this. Am I clear? The flow of diagram should be from left to right. You can see that it is starting from here and ultimately coming to the right hand side, left to right. That should be the always the convention for any network diagram or construction. Always left to right. One single start node, one single end node. There should not be multiple start node or multiple end node for any network construction. Arrows should not be crossed unless it is completely unavoidable. Arrows should not be crossed unless it is completely unavoidable. Arrows should be kept straight. You can see that in all the diagrams, the arrows are kept straight, not curved or bent. That is not acceptable for any network construction. Angle between arrows should be large as possible. That means these two activities have no relationship. So you can see that their angle is maximum. Here, B and C activities, they are starting from the same node 2 but angle is much bigger, large as possible. There should be single arrow for every activity. There should not be any double arrow. There should be only single arrow for any activity. Clear? So these are the considerations. Guidelines for network. Each activity must have a tail or head event. No two or more activities may have same tail or head events. Like you can see, start node is 1, end node is 2, duration is D12, activity is noted with capital A, and in this case 1 is known as the tail node, 2 is known as the head node. Clear? In any case, it should not be like this. Most node should have, we have mentioned, no two or more activities may have the same tail or head events. In this case, these two activities having the same tail node, same head node, this is a big no. Clear? Once the diagram is complete, the node should be numbered from left to right. That you can see I have already given 1 and 2. It should then be possible to address each activity uniquely by its tail and head event. Clear? Once the diagram will be completed, then you are going to put the number in the node starting from left to the right. Then only uniquely it will be addressed. Which one is the tail node, which one is the head node. Clear? Now, Fulkerson's rule. What is that? The tail node will be denoted by I, already I have mentioned that, and the head node will be denoted by J. And J should be always greater than I. That means J greater than I. What is that? You can see here the nodes are, this is a network. Nodes are given by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. According to this definition, this is a ith node, this is a jth node, and you can see j is greater than I because I and then j. In this case, this is the I for node 2 and there will be j for node 3. Okay. There should not be any looping in the network. Looping means, looping is known as cycling error and creates an impossible situation, and it appears that none of the activities could ever be completed. What is that? If the network is like this, that means from this node 1, activity A is starting, finishing at activity node 2. From there, activity B is starting, finishing at node 2. So this will be node 3. And then this will be node 3. And then it is coming back to node 1. This kind of activity is not accepted. This is known as looping. So you cannot complete the project. Clear? Remember this point number 2 is by mistake it is given, it should be 3. So 1, 2, 3. There should be no dangling in the network. What is dangling? Dangling means sometimes a project network includes an activity which does not fit into the end objective of the project and is carried out without any result related with completion of the project. Such an error is network is called dangling. And let us first see the diagram. This is a network diagram. Activity A is starting from node 1 finishing at node 2. From node 2, 3 activities are starting, node activity B, activity C and activity D. Then from this node 3, activity E is getting completed. From node 2, activity D is getting completed, project is getting over. Now this C has got no relevance with the network project. This is wrong and this should not be done. This is known as dangling. Okay? It has got no role to play in completion of the project. So it is not required, that means this activity is useless. This activity C is known as dangling activity. So this is also not accepted. So with this, we have come to a conclusion of today's topic. We have given lot many inputs and thank you very much for attending the session. If you feel some difficulties somewhere in this particular session, this will be uploaded very soon in the YouTube, in the channel Hospitality Education PPT. Go through it again and again. And if there are questions, I am sure there will be questions. Please put me in the question comment box. I'll give you the proper answer and justification for that. Now, if you have liked the session, subscribe it, like it, and share it with your friends. Press the bell button so that people will get the alarm the very first. Your feedback is very, very important. I need to know that how we have understood the topic and how we can conduct the next session with some more effective way that will guide me. And thank you very much. We'll meet again. See you till then. Take care.